Hello everybody and welcome to part 7 of the SketchUp series. In this video we're going to talk a little bit about dimensioning and a little bit about exporting too. Let's get going. So I'll start off by saying this isn't something I normally do on SketchUp. I explained in the first video of this series that my workflow is usually sketching stuff out on paper, creating a 3D model of it on SketchUp to see how it looks, and then once I'm happy with it, I will redraw that onto CAD. However, for this series, I'm assuming that you don't have access to CAD or anything because it can be quite expensive software, and we're going to be doing everything on SketchUp itself. Right, so when adding dimensions to this, we are going to struggle to fit all the required information into this one thing. So what we're going to need to do is create multiple views for this. And so let's start by just copying the table and creating another model next to it. That'll get us going. Now our first page of plans will most likely be the overall size and scale of the table. For example, if you were to hand it to a customer or something, they would likely want to know how tall is it going to be, how wide is it going to be, how deep is it going to be, just so they know if they can fit it in certain areas of the house. So what we'll do with this first one is just put general dimensions on it: overall height, width, depth, maybe the footprint on the legs or something. Actually no, we won't do that. We'll just keep it at a complete surface level, and then for any subsequent drawings and measurements after that, we'll do it in much finer detail. So we'll go into the old tape measure here, and then we've got dimensions, and we're just going to put one dimension going across here, have it go up on the blue axis just because it makes it easier to see. Got another one here, and we should be able to snap that onto this one. There we go. So for this one, if we start up there, and then I think if we click on the bottom of the leg, we should, there we go. So we should be able to get it out like that. So that could be one drawing, and then we could go up here and we could do, let's say, print or something, and we can get that onto a piece of paper. To save yourself a bit of ink, press on white background, and then it's not going to try and render in that entire grey background, and you'll save a lot more moolah. You can obviously make it a different paper size as well if you wanted. You have also got the option to do scenes here. Scenes basically allow you to get to different viewpoints of the objects that you're drawing without having to like zoom and pan and stuff. It basically just locks in camera positions for you. And it's actually how I do a lot of my 3D diagrams in the tutorial videos that I do in this free online woodworking school. And so you can add a scene by clicking this button here, and then if we just press add, that will add a scene. So then we could go in a little bit closer, let's say somewhere like here, and we could add another scene. So then if I click on this one, you see it goes back to the main one like that, and then we can go to the secondary scene as well. What you can do with this, if I was to hide the drawer, for example, and let's hide this as well, and then add this as a scene. So now when you switch between them, you can see it's quite a good way of looking into cavities without having to, move drawers and things like that. What you could do actually, if I just undo this and add another scene and bring that back up here, there we go. So I've got them in sort of the wrong order at the moment, but we could go scene 1, scene 2, a little bit closer, and so yeah, that's a little insight as to how I do the 3D models in the tutorials. And so that's what it was referring to in the print thing up here. You can check which scene you actually want it to print. And so that might be useful if you wanted to keep all the dimensions compact on one model, because you can hide certain components for each scene, but I think that will just make it a little bit too messy with the dimensions and quite confusing to draw. So that's why we're just going to copy the table and just measure individual components. So for this we could go one there, and for this middle section, let's just get the outside of the inlay there. And then you could add a dimension to the inlay itself, but why not just use the leader tool and just tell the viewer what it is. So we could just type in 2mm ebony inlay. So again, we would then just print that as an individual sheet as well. And so you can just keep doing that with each individual component. You could measure out the mortises. You could even cut into one of the legs and measure the mortise from the inside if you really wanted. That's the advantage of doing this in 3D. You can just cut into anything and measure wherever you want. The key with this though is to not put too many dimensions on there and add too much noise to it, because as you're reading it, there will quite likely be too much information and it'll be hard to find the stuff that you actually need. The key with this is finding a balance between having enough dimensions so that you can work things out, but not having so much that you just confuse yourself when you try and read it. So with a lot of components, you could just draw them individually, but with some of them, let's say if we just delete all this. So these draw runners, for example, If those were components on their own and you were just sort of dimensioning them as length, thickness and width and all that, the reader of the plans might be a bit confused as to what those actually are and where they go in the design. And so for things like the draw runners, I would actually keep these in situ when adding dimensions. In fact, what you could do, just to make it really clear what you're measuring, you could just make all the other components white. So then it effectively highlights the ones you want. And you know, you don't even have to add dimensions to that. You could just put a leader on it and say this is, I don't know what the actual dimensions are, but you could just say this is 250 times 25 times 15. And that will be absolutely fine for the reader of the plans. Obviously with this, it's not entirely clear how this is joined to the inside. So you could say this is a biscuit joint, and then the maker of it can just work out the size of the biscuits themselves and what the spacing will be. You don't really need that written in the plans. That's something that the maker tends to do. And then for this side runner here, you could just say, you know, you could put dimensions on it to start with, and you could just say screwed into stretcher. And so then the maker would read that and they would go, cool, I'm just going to put a little screw there and a little screw there going into the side. Done. And so that's the basics of adding dimensions to things. Obviously, if you're watching this series, you're probably using the free version of SketchUp, which means you're probably not making these drawings for anyone else, which means you will most likely be making these things yourself. And so it's up to you how many dimensions you put in there at the end of the day. And quite often when I'm making a piece, I will need to go back to CAD or, you know, back to this just to remeasure something that I forgot to put on the drawings. But I would encourage you to sort of explode the design apart and measure individual parts, particularly with the drawer, because you've got a lot of small details on the back dovetails, for example, that you need quite a lot of detail when measuring. So definitely explode it and definitely put little dimensions on there where you can. Now, like I said earlier, when I'm doing this, I will then take this design and I will redraw it into CAD. The reason I redraw it, I don't really know why. I think it's just for control and just to make sure everything is a round number, because with SketchUp models, I'm quite often pulling them apart and pushing them back together. And sometimes there'll be numbers in there that aren't whole integers, and I'll start accidentally having decimals and things in there. So it's often better just to redraw it in AutoCAD so that you've got nice whole numbers. But if you were confident in your modeling, you can just export this into various different files. So let me show you that here. Firstly, I'm just going to delete all this stuff surrounding it because we don't really need that. We just want the main model. And up here, we've got the menu, export, and you know, you can just export it as a picture. I don't know what that, oh, for 3D printing, of course. You can 3D print from this software. It's quite cool. So you've got 3ds. 3ds is a Autodesk product, kind of like the 3D modeling version of AutoCAD, which is primarily a 2D drafting software, but not limited to. You can do 3D in that as well. Don't know what Collada is, Collada. DWG is what you'll use for AutoCAD, and so that will be a really good one to have. You can export that as a 3D or a 2D model. DXF, I believe that is also available in AutoCAD, but it's more of a versatile file. I might be wrong on that though. I don't really use DXF that much. It's mainly just DWG, and I don't know what that is. I don't know what any of these other ones are, but that is where the exports are. And so if you want to open this in another program, that will allow you to translate the file across. And so one more thing we could do with this, just to give back to the SketchUp community, I suppose, is we could upload this model to the 3D warehouse. That way, if anyone's doing a room design and they want to have some shaker inspired furniture in there just for little props, you know, they might end up wanting to use ours, and they will probably be quite blown away at the detail we've put into it, particularly the dovetailed drawer. So yeah, let's go into the 3D warehouse, and we've got the upload tool here. Upload a model. What's the name of it? It is a shaker table. Tell us about your hashtag awesome model. Hashtags help others find it. This is a shaker table I designed for a SketchUp on YouTube. Enjoy using it. And then what I could do here, not sure if you're allowed to do this or not on SketchUp, but I'm going to do it anyway. Copy and then add a URL to my YouTube channel. Your model must be set, oh, of course, table. And here you can see all the other, oh, come on, all the other designs that I have done on the online software. Uploading to 3D Warehouse, and then anyone else who wants to have a shaker table in their model or wants some free plans for a shaker table can download it from the 3D Warehouse. Giving back to the community. And so that's the basics of using SketchUp for web, which is a free piece of software that you can just visit a website and start using after you make an account. Remember that you can also use SketchUp Make 2017, which is another free piece of software. However, I don't know how long that's going to actually last. I feel like SketchUp will probably just get rid of that and have it purely as the browser free version or the paid pro version. Saying that, if you want me to do another series on SketchUp focusing on the Pro version of it, then let me know in the comments below. But in the meantime, if you enjoyed the video, please do not forget to press the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and good luck with your SketchUp endeavours. I'll see you in the next one.